All right, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we are live. Welcome back to the show. Today is a lovely Sunday afternoon. You guys know that normally I don't do broadcasts on Sunday, but the news doesn't stop, and so I guess neither do I. Now, today we have some big info pertaining to President Trump's upcoming meeting with none other than Vladimir Putin this upcoming Friday, 5 days from now. We also have some massive updates regarding the current state of the Ukraine and Russian peace talks, the peace negotiations, which is, of course, what Trump is going to be meeting with Putin about in 5 days. And I'll tell you what, as all of this news is coming out, it seems to me as if Volodymyr Zalinsky, the leader, the president, or maybe even the dictator of Ukraine, is not happy about the way that these negotiations are going. So today I want to say, everybody, thank you all very much for tuning in, whether or not you are on Rumble or on YouTube. Excuse me, please make sure to subscribe. Please make sure to like. It goes a long way. It helps a lot. So today, folks, let's just get into it. We have a lot to talk about. Now, let's hop over here. Before we really start breaking everything down, I think it's important that first you guys take a listen to what President Trump had to say about all of this just yesterday afternoon. So let's kick off the show with President Trump. Here we go.
I think my instinct really tells me that we have a shot at it. Okay. And you'll find that out later on and maybe even today, but we have a shot at it. Look, it's got to be solved. You know, we're not losing people.
Yes, it does.
A lot of people say, why are you bothering? We're not losing people. We were spending hundreds of billions of dollars. Now we're spending nothing. We're spending no money. I guess we're making money because, you know, we have the best military equipment in the world. We're selling it to NATO. But you're losing thousands of people a week, Russians and Ukrainians mostly soldiers, but, you know, missiles are lobbed into cities.
The number I have heard, I was looking into this morning, so far, guess how many lives have been lost as a consequence of this ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine? How many people have lost their lives in the last 3 years or almost 3.5 years now? The number I see is 1.5 million people. But that's, by the way, that's between both sides of the equation. It's civilians, it's combatants, it's Ukrainians, it's Russians. Add it all up together, 1.5 million people have lost their lives. It totally could have been avoided.
The cities and towns, Kiev, lots of places. You've been reading the same stories that I've been reading. And we got to get it solved.
The Norwegian Nobel Committee will make their announcement as it relates to this year's Nobel Peace Prize on October the 10th, Friday, October the 10th. Is that date circled on your calendar, Mr. President?
I can't say. I mean, a lot of people say, no matter what I did, because, you know, I'm of a certain persuasion, no matter what I do, they won't give it.
I have to say, this question, President Trump, the Norwegian Nobel Prize Committee, whatever, they're meeting up. They've got this date. They're going to decide who's going to get the prize, or they're accepting all the nominations in. Are you thinking about that, President Trump? This is such a mean-spirited, disingenuous question. And I think at first glance, it's like, whatever. But I want to really make sense of why this reporter is even asking this question about the Nobel Peace Prize. President Trump has now, of course, been nominated for 3 Nobel Peace Prizes. He has negotiated de-escalations and peace agreements and, all types of peace deals all over the world. He's negotiated 5 of them so far in the last couple months. We're talking India and Pakistan. He de-escalated the situation in the Middle East. He's working on Eastern Europe right now. There was some situation in the heart of Africa that he de-escalated. And, you know, rather than just acknowledging that President Trump is genuinely, out of the sincerity of his heart, pursuing peace, that he genuinely does want peace around the world. No. The progressive left, they can't acknowledge that. They can't acknowledge that President Trump sincerely does want peace everywhere on earth. Instead, they have to say, he is negotiating peace deal after peace deal, but he's really only doing it because he's a selfish piece of crap. Trump he only cares about negotiating peace because he wants an award, because he wants a prize. They can't just accept that actually Trump just is the president of peace. So really, this question that he asked about the Nobel Peace Prize, it is such a mean-spirited, disingenuous question. It is.
And I'm not politicking for it. I have a lot of people that are. I know. I mean, I read the same things as you do. But it would be a great honor, certainly. But I would never politic. I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it because of, I really, number one, I want to save lives. That's why I'm involved so much with Ukraine and Russia. It's saving lives of Russians and Ukrainians. It's not American lives. Now, I would say this, that war could have escalated in something much better. That could have been a world war. I think if we didn't come, Ukraine-Russia would have ended up being a world war. And I stopped that.
Absolutely.
That stopped. Now, the only question is, when is it going to be settled? And it could be very soon, but when is it going to be? But that would have been a world war. If I didn't come along with a very talented group of people sitting largely right here, but there are others not in the room that are very talented, I think Russia, Ukraine would have had a very, very high degree, I think even probably would have ended up being in a world war.
Your predecessor.
I don't think people talk about that now because they don't see it anymore, but we brought it down a long way. But that was getting to a point. When I first came in, I said, wow, this thing is really bad.
Well, if anybody here is historically literate or historically educated, the series of events that led to the outbreak of World War I and also World War II, you know, in the moment, it might not have seemed like massive events, but these events, they cascade very quickly. One thing leads to another, and then it leads to another. And then before you know it, it's like, yeah, okay, we have a world war on our hands. But in the moment, it's like, you know, it's a series of very small dominoes that end up sort of knocking over the massive domino. And then you realize, yeah, wow, all the dominoes have fallen over. And now we are in a world war. And so real quick, I want to say real quick, there was a super chat from Greg on YouTube. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you very much. When you look at how closely the Russian economy is tied to various other countries like China and India and Turkey and Kazakhstan and Belarus, all big countries, reasonably wealthy countries, by the way, as well, with millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of people, seriously. And all of these countries have one thing in common. All of them are getting the majority of their energy, their liquefied natural gas, their gasoline, all of this stuff, their electricity, they're getting it from Russia. You know, it's very easy to understand how if something were to happen to Russia, it would very easily pull in all of these other countries that would come to Russia's defense. So a lot of people that were making fun of President Trump, it's not a world war. Come on, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. No, really, very easily could have and still can, by the way, result in a world war, which is why it's so important that we de-escalate this entire situation. So this is the clip from President Trump from yesterday afternoon that has been going viral. Trump is meeting with Putin this upcoming Friday. That is 5 days from now. There's an article that was posted earlier today that I want to read through with all of you folks to really get a better grip of what is going on with this entire situation. And we're going to add some additional information and context as we read through this. So once again, before we read through this, before we break it down, I do want to say once again, thank you everybody for tuning in today. Please make sure to subscribe and like the video. We are live on Rumble. We are live on YouTube. We're live all over the place. So everybody, happy Sunday. Let's break down this entire situation. Like I said, Zalinsky is not happy with the way that all of this is unfolding. So this article is titled, European leaders rally around Zalinsky, demand, quote, more pressure on Putin ahead of the Trump summit. European leaders have urged more pressure on Russia overnight Saturday, last night, after the announcement of a Trump-Putin summit to end the war in Ukraine raised some concerns that an agreement would require Kiev to cede swaths of territory. Now, we're going to talk about more the conditions of this entire situation in about 10 or 15 minutes, but as a little bit of a spoiler here, excuse me, yeah, that is probably what is going to happen. Ukraine is probably going to have to give up some territory. There's not really another alternative. We're going to break down that entire dynamic here pretty soon, but this is one of the reasons why Zalinsky seems to be a little bit upset with the way that this is going. Let's keep on reading here. Presidents Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump will meet in the U.S. state of Alaska, beautiful state, this Friday to try to resolve the 3-year-long conflict. Too long. Shouldn't have even been 3 days or 3 months. 3 years, despite warnings from Ukraine and Europe that Kiev must be a part of the negotiations. Announcing the summit last week, Trump said that he said, quote, there will be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both sides. And then he didn't elaborate on that any further. So this is what Trump said last week. I'm going to read this off again. This is very important. Pay attention to this, folks. Trump said a couple days ago, there will have to be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both sides. Zelensky is not happy about that. Let's keep on reading. But President Volodymyr Zelensky warned Saturday that Ukraine won't surrender land to Russia in order to buy peace. Now, what they are referring to, where Zelensky says this, he posted this last night, and I want to read through this. It's just like a couple paragraphs long. It's really not too long. Zelensky released an official statement. He had a video, but he's speaking in Ukrainian. I don't speak Ukrainian, so we're going to read through this. He said late last night, Ukraine is ready for real decisions that can bring peace. Any decisions that are against us, any decisions that are without Ukraine, are at the same time decisions against peace. They will not achieve anything. These are stillborn decisions, dead on arrival. They are unworkable decisions, and we all need real and genuine peace that people will respect. He goes on to say, President Trump announced preparations for his meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, very far away from this war, which is raging on our land against our people, and which anyway can't be ended without us, without Ukraine. So what is he saying here effectively? He's saying, listen, if President Trump and Putin come up with a peace agreement, if it's not exactly perfectly to my liking, to my conditions, I'm Zalinsky, if it's not up to my standards, I'm not going to tell my men to stand down. We're going to keep on fighting. We might even escalate. We are not going to stop until we get everything we want. So this is what Zalinsky is saying. And then he goes on to say, Putin did not believe in our people and therefore made the hopeless decision to try to take Ukraine. This was his main mistake, not taking the Ukrainians into account. Now, this actually is a fair point. I have to be honest here. The Ukrainian people most certainly have fought harder than I think anyone would have expected. Most certainly harder than Putin expected. You know, if you remember back almost 3.5 years ago, Putin was saying this was going to be a 2-week-long special military operation. It's not a war. It's not a war. No, it is not. It's a 2-week-long special military operation. So, you know, to give credit to the brave Ukrainian fighters, whether or not you think we should be giving them money and stuff, that's a different issue. They've been fighting pretty damn hard. It's undeniable. Let's move on. Okay. Zelensky said, I believe in our people. Ukrainians are strong. Ukrainians defend what is theirs. Many in the world have sided with Ukraine during the war. Even those who are with Russia know that Russia is doing evil. We have a massive super chat real quick here from Steve Burry. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. Happy Sunday. I forgot what day it is. Happy Sunday. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Zelensky goes on to say, of course, we will not reward Russia. This is important. Pay attention now. Of course, we will not reward Russia for what it has perpetrated. The Ukrainian people deserve peace, but all partners must understand what a dignified peace is. What does that mean? He goes on to say, this war must be brought to an end and Russia must end it. Russia started it and is dragging it out, ignoring all deadlines, and that is the problem, not something else. The answer to the Ukrainian territorial question already is in the Constitution of Ukraine. No one will deviate from this, and no one will be able to. This is the most important sentence that you're going to read all day. Everybody pay attention. Listen carefully. Zalinsky says, Ukrainians will not gift their land to the occupier. Now, hold that thought. Let's take a look at the current battle map of Ukraine. This is a live broadcast, of course. Yes, it is. Thank you for tuning in. This is Eastern Ukraine as of 4 days ago. This is the most recent battle map, territorial, where the lines are drawn 4 days ago as of August 6th. Take a look at this. Russia has been able to successfully conquer, I think that's the proper word here, Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and Crimea. Crimea they took in 2014. And so, undeniably so, Russia has been effective to some degree at taking some of the things that they have wanted. They also have some rough territories up here, limited Russian military control up to the north and the northeast. And so Russia really has, over the last 3 years, they have taken quite a bit of territory. And so what is Vladimir Zalinsky saying about this? What does he have to say? He says, listen, we are not going to gift our land to the occupier Russia in order to broker peace. So Zalinsky is effectively saying, listen, if you want to have peace, if we want this situation to de-escalate, then what? Russia has got to give all of this land back. They're saying we are never, Ukraine here, we are never going to give this land. We're never going to walk away from this in order to broker a peace deal. It's a tough situation. He goes on to say, Vladimir Zalinsky, we are ready to work together with President Trump, together with all of our partners, for real and, most importantly, lasting peace, a peace that will not collapse because of Moscow's desires. I thank all of our people for being together. Ukraine is together. I thank all of our soldiers for preserving our independence. Stand firm. This is our land. We are Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. I see the first comment here is, you want peace? Give Putin what he wants. It's really that simple. Crazy. Unbelievable. Okay, so this is what Zalinsky had to say maybe 12 hours ago, late last night. We're going to keep reading the article here because there's a lot more to unpackage here. So this is where we left off. Zalinsky said, Ukrainians will not give their land to the occupier. He said last night, any decisions against us, any decisions without Ukraine are also decisions against peace. So once again, what is he saying? He's saying that, you know, if we don't get exactly what we want in these negotiations, then there will be no peace. We will not sign on to a peace deal. Zalinsky urged Ukraine's allies to take, quote, clear steps towards achieving a sustainable peace during a call with Britain's Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, another leader that nobody likes. European leaders issued a joint statement overnight Saturday to Sunday morning saying that, quote, only an approach that combines active diplomacy, support to Ukraine, and pressure on the Russian Federation to end their illegal war can succeed. They welcomed Trump's efforts, saying they were ready to help diplomatically by maintaining support to Ukraine as well as by upholding and imposing restrictive measures against Russia. Ursula von der Leyen, in addition to a bunch of other European leaders, they said the current line of contact should be the starting point of negotiations. Right. So far, there have been 3 different peace negotiations just in the last couple months. All of them have fallen through. Now, President Trump is saying, listen, bring Putin over to Russia. I want to meet with him in person. Okay. And bear with me because we have a lot more to talk about here, guys. National security advisors from Kiev's allies, including the United States, the European Union nations, and the UK, gathered in Britain yesterday, to align their views ahead of the Putin-Trump summit. So, as far as I understand it, a lot of these European Union leaders are actually not really a part of this meeting. Trump has said, listen, I'm doing my own thing. I am summoning Putin to the doorstep of the United States, up to Alaska, and I'm going to meet with him. It's going to be a private meeting, and I'm going to do what I need to do to de-escalate this entire situation. And a lot of the EU leaders are like, hey, we weren't invited to this, right? So Trump is just full steam ahead. Let's keep reading here, folks. We have a lot to talk about. In his evening address yesterday, Zalinsky said, quote, there must be an honest end to this war and it is up to Russia to end the war that it started. 3 rounds, yeah, there you have it. 3 rounds of talks between Russia and Ukraine this year have failed to bear fruit. For a multitude of reasons, as we all know. We've talked about that a lot. It's a complex situation. In fact, we are going here in a couple minutes, we're going to break down the nitty-gritty complexities of the situation. And I think if you don't already, when we really break this stuff down, you're going to appreciate why this situation is so difficult and so complex, and why a peace deal has not been reached yet. It's an incredibly difficult situation. Donald Trump is, I would presume, incredibly frustrated with not just one party, but both parties at the same time. Let's keep reading here. We're going to get to that here pretty soon. 3 rounds of talks between Russia and Ukraine this year have failed to bear fruit. Tens of thousands of people have been killed since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022, with millions forced to flee their homes. Once again, I spent about 30 minutes trying to get a precise, exact number on this before I went live with today's broadcast. Between Russia and Ukraine combatants and civilians, the best number I can find is about 1.6 or 1.5 million people have lost their lives in the last almost 3.5 years as a consequence of this terrible war. Really, totally avoidable too. Just really terrible situation. Now, Putin, a former KGB officer in power of Russia for over 25 years, has ruled out holding talks with Zalinsky at this stage. So Putin has said, listen, we're not going to talk to Zalinsky yet, but maybe in the future. Not yet, though. We're not at that point. Ukraine's leader has been pushing, this is Zalinsky, has been pushing for a 3-way summit, and he argues that meeting Putin is the only way to make progress towards peace. The summit in Alaska, the far north territory which Russia sold to the United States in 1867, 150 years ago or so, would be the first meeting between U.S. and Russia presidents since Joe Biden met Putin in Geneva in June of 2021. Now, fun historical fact, not that this relates to all of this very much, but back in 1867, do you guys know the reason why the United States bought Alaska from Russia? So Alaska was sort of this Russian colonial territory. There were a few Russian settlements in Alaska in the 1850s, 1860s. The United States actually decided to buy Alaska from Russia because in the mid 1850s, Russia had lost a very expensive and catastrophic war with a coalition of Western European superpowers, the French and the British, and they were fighting in Crimea. This is in the 1850s. So Russia lost the Crimean War in the 1850s. They were in massive wartime debt. They had been kicked out of Ukraine at that point. And at this point, the United States was also worried about Western European superpower aggression. We were worried about the Western European superpowers also. And so we were actually kind of buddy-buddy friends with Russia in the 1850s and 1860s. We said, listen, Russia, we're going to go ahead and buy Alaska from you. They were practically begging us to buy Alaska because they were looking to make money to pay their way out of this wartime debt that they had accrued from losing this war in Crimea. So anyway, we actually bought Alaska from them as kind of a favor. In fact, amongst the American population in the 1860s, this purchase of Alaska wasn't even really that popular. It was incredibly controversial. So we actually helped them out by buying this. Anyway, not that this matters a whole lot, but fun history lesson. Now, we have a massive super chat from Raya, one of the best viewers of all time. She says, best channel, TY Matt, God bless you and your family. And all the Patriots, America first, God bless. Raya, thank you very much. That's a massive amount of support, and also happy Sunday. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, that's a big deal. I appreciate that a lot. I was getting a little bit tangential here. Let's get back to the story today that is at hand today. Okay, so Zalinsky said of the location that it was very far away from this war in Alaska, which is raging on our land against our people. The Kremlin said the choice was, quote, logical because the state close to the Arctic is on the border between the two countries, and this is where their economic interests intersect. Moscow has also invited Trump to pay a reciprocal visit to Russia in the near future. We don't know if Trump is going to do that, though. Trump and Putin last sat together in 2019 at a G20 summit meeting in Japan during Trump's first presidential term. However, they've spoken by telephone several times since January, but Trump has failed to broker peace in Ukraine as he promised he could. Well, listen, he's still trying. I want to say something once again, guys, ladies and gentlemen. Trump is under absolutely zero obligation to work out a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. This is not his problem. He doesn't have to do this. He has no obligation to do this. The reason why Trump is investing all of this time and effort, flying all over the world, meeting with people to work this out, is because he genuinely does, just out of the goodness and sincerity of his heart, want the killing to stop, and he wants to bring about peace. If President Trump were to say right now, you know what? I don't care about this situation anymore. I'm done. Good luck. That is well within his right to do so. In fact, I think a lot of people would say that given how hard he has tried to bring about peace, that throwing in the towel at this point would maybe even be justified, given how, belligerent some of the parties involved have been on both sides. Let's keep reading here because, like I said, we have a lot more to talk about today. Okay. Russia and Ukraine continued pouring dozens of drones into each other's positions in an exchange of attacks in the early hours of Saturday. That's yesterday morning, just hours ago. A bus carrying civilians was hit in Ukraine's front line in Kherson, killing 2 people and wounding 16. Terrible. The Russian army claimed to have taken Yablonovka, another village in the Donetsk region. By the way, guys, real quick, this is the current sort of war map in eastern Ukraine as things currently stand. So we were just talking about Donetsk. Over the last almost 3.5 years, Russia has been, for better or for worse, they have been able to take quite a fair amount of territory in eastern Ukraine. Crimea, of course, they took in 2014. Let's wrap up this article here because we have some more stuff to talk about. Now, in 2022, the Kremlin announced the annexation of 4 Ukrainian regions. That's what we were just looking at: Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson, despite not having full control over them. As a prerequisite to any peace settlement, Moscow demanded that Kiev pull its forces out of the regions and commit to being a neutral state. They shun Western military support and be excluded from joining NATO. Kiev, however, said it would never recognize Russian control over its sovereign territory, though it acknowledged that getting land captured by Russia back would have to come through diplomacy and not on the battlefield. Okay, what does that mean? What is the implicit message here if they're saying, okay, we acknowledge we're not going to be able to militaristically get the land back, we're going to have to negotiate for it? That means that they acknowledge that they are outgunned, maybe even perhaps kind of losing the situation. They're losing a grip. They're losing control of the situation here. The Ukrainians are. Okay, whoa. On YouTube, guys, right now we are live on Rumble and on YouTube. Shout out both audiences. From Scott Kinirim, this is a $299 super chat. This is probably the biggest super chat I've ever had. The single biggest super chat. Thank you very much. That is massive. I appreciate that a lot. Huge. Happy Sunday. Thank you very much. Today is right now, now that we finished up today's article here, this is where we're getting to the good point, Scott. And thank you very much. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody on Rumble and on YouTube for tuning in today. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Take a look at this. So this is what I want to show you next. This is what we are going to talk about next. This is the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, who chimed in late last night. Actually, no, I apologize. This morning, Secretary General of NATO, who gives some thoughts on Trump's upcoming peace talk in Alaska with Putin. Take a look at this.
And I think it is very good that President Trump will test him, and we'll see how far he can get on Friday, starting this process. He basically broke the deadlock, President Trump, in February, starting the dialogue with Putin. I think that was crucial. We had a great NATO summit under his leadership, committing to 5% defense spending, so that is a clear signal to our main threat, which is Russia, that we are serious. And then he opened the floodgates 3 weeks ago of American lethal weapons to be delivered into Ukraine, coordinated by NATO. And of course, the secondary sanctions. He started them with putting them on India, which is one of the biggest buyers of Russian oil and gas.
Okay, so with that little introduction and recap from the Secretary General of NATO, who Trump met with a couple weeks ago, I want to add some extra context here. The different ways in which President Trump has spent the last couple months building new leverage against Putin and against Russia for the sole purpose of negotiating a peace deal in Eastern Europe. You kind of have to connect some dots here, and I don't see a lot of people looking at the situation this way, which is why I want to do that right now. So guys, let's break down some of the things, some of the maneuvers that President Trump has executed over the last couple months. About a month ago, President Trump negotiated a brand new European Union-US trade deal. By doing so, Trump has successfully pulled the European Union away from their dependency on Russian energy. That is a very, very, very massive, colossal deal. This is a fun fact that I like to give you guys that I think is going to blow your mind. Maybe some of you have not heard this. In the year of 2023 and in the year of 2024, collectively, the European Union actually gave more money to Russia in the form of energy payments than they did in military support to Ukraine. So the European Union has been in this very strange position. The European Union has been screaming from the rooftops, we have to stop Russia, we have to support Ukraine, etc. You have all heard this before. They've been giving a huge amount of money, hundreds of billions of dollars, aid, humanitarian aid, weaponry, tanks, whatever, missiles, all of this support to Ukraine. But in reality, they've actually been giving even more money than that to Russia over the last 2 years because they've been so dependent on Russian energy. Where does the European Union get most of their energy? From Russia. And so they're in this little bit of a pickle. And so President Trump, he swooped in about a month ago. He said, listen, European Union, we're going to have this new trade deal. And one thing we're going to do here is you're going to stop purchasing so much energy from Russia. Instead, back here in the US, we are opening up the American domestic energy sector. You're going to start buying American energy. So Trump has successfully decoupled, regarding energy at least, decoupled the European Union from Russia, and now the European Union is getting energy from us. So what does this do? Yes, it's good for our economy. Yes, it makes us money. It makes the European Union less dependent on maybe a hostile superpower, Russia. And then it also isolates Russia and gives Trump negotiating leverage over Russia and Putin regarding the ongoing peace talks in Ukraine. So that's one really just genius master play that Trump has pulled off in the last couple months. Beyond that, right now, Trump, like Secretary General NATO Mark Rutte said a moment ago, Trump is also pressuring India to reduce their consumption on Russian energy. He has imposed sanctions on India. And actually, so far, India has actually already started reducing their consumption of Russian energy to kind of meet Trump's demands and to placate President Trump a little bit. So not only has Trump pushed the European Union away from Russia or pulled them away from Russia, but also now Trump is trying to pull India away from Russia. So what is Trump doing? Trump is trying to globally, economically trying to isolate Russia, to say, listen, Russia, if you want this to stop, if you want me, Trump, to stop kneecapping your income, then you're going to have to come to the table and negotiate a peace deal. Beyond that, so really those are the two big things. So a huge part of President Trump's trade deals that we've seen him make all over the world in the last couple months are actually designed to isolate Russia and convince them to come to the negotiating table. So this is all a deliberate and intentional strategy. Trump has also, beyond the trade deals and the tariffs and stuff like this, what happened about a month and a half ago, this is where NATO comes in. Trump has also gotten all of the NATO member nations, the European ones, to increase their defense budget from 2% of their yearly GDP up to 5% of their yearly GDP. That's a big increase. That is over 2 times. Now, of course, a lot of those European NATO members weren't even spending 2%. They were, contractually obligated to do so, but they were never living up to that contractual obligation. Now Trump said, listen, you guys have to pay. Going forward, it's not only 2%, it's got to be 5%, and we're going to hold you to it. And so if you are Russia right now, if you are Putin, the leader of Russia right now, you're probably looking out across the landscape. You're looking over into Europe. You're looking all over the place. You're saying, listen, Trump is actually to some degree being very successful with kind of isolating us, isolating the Russians. He's crippling their the amount of money that they're generating every year by selling energy across the world. And also he's convinced the European Union, NATO member nations to increase their defense spending. So Trump is being very smart about this. And so all of this, once again, is designed to convince Russia to come back to the negotiating table. Now, not only do we have a clip here from Mark Rutte, but also Lindsey Graham chimed in once again this morning, and he said something kind of interesting about this also. You guys know we are all perhaps not the biggest supporters of Lindsey Graham, but he said something kind of interesting about all of this, the ongoing developments here, that I want to play for you guys. Take a look at this.
But I have every confidence in the world that the president is going to go to meet Putin from a position of strength, that he's going to look out for Europe and Ukrainian needs to end this war honorably, and it's time to end this war honorably. But how we do it will be historical, and I'm confident President Trump will get a good deal for all.
Now, of course, all of us here in the public, we don't actually know the key details of Trump's deal, of the offer that he is going to give to Putin in 5 days when they meet in Alaska. We don't know exactly what that's going to be. Okay. It could be, hey, listen, Putin, you get to keep Crimea and Donetsk and Luhansk, and then you have to give back Zaporizhia and Kherson. Who knows? It could involve more than just territory. Of course, it is necessarily going to involve more than just territory. It's going to be a big thing, but we don't know exactly what it's going to be. Now, I'm going to make one request of people, both in Rumble and on YouTube. I don't really care what you guys post. Just do me a favor. Do not spam the chat. It is very annoying. I see some spammers, so relax, stop. Once again, I don't care what you post. You can express your opinion, but don't spam. It is annoying. Okay, so the fine granular details of this deal we don't know. But however, we hear from Lindsey Graham, of all people, that he believes in 5 days Trump is going to be able to work out a deal with Putin. Now, Lindsey Graham, for a long time, of course, Lindsey Graham has been vehemently diehard anti-Russia, anti-Putin. Lindsey Graham is one of Zalinsky's biggest supporters. Lindsey Graham loves Zalinsky. He's one of these guys that wants more money, more support, more military aid, more assistance to Ukraine. And so Lindsey Graham, of all people, is actually saying, listen, when Trump meets with Putin, I think he's going to be able to work out a deal. And most certainly Lindsey Graham has information that we don't have. So we're going to have to see what that looks like. Now, beyond what Lindsey Graham has to say, 2 days ago, a senior ranking Russian official, we have a video of this, but he's speaking Russian, so I'm not going to play it. Anyway, 2 days ago, as this deal is getting lined up, he said, Russian official just revealed that they have received an offer from President Trump on the Ukraine war, and they deem the deal to be acceptable. He said acceptable. This is a senior ranking Russian official. And so once again, Trump right now seems confident they're going to have a deal. Lindsey Graham right now seems confident they're going to have a deal. The senior ranking Russian official seems confident they're going to have a deal. Zalinsky is very unhappy. Let's talk about why Zalinsky is unhappy. Now, I think at this point in today's broadcast, it's worth it to really try to break down exactly what each of these two countries wants. What does Russia want? What are Russia's conditions for a deal? And also, what are Ukraine's conditions for a deal? What are the deal breakers? What are the necessary conditions? And we're going to walk through this real quick. I've put together a list here. By the time we're done talking about this, like I said earlier, I think you guys are going to really understand why this problem is so annoying and complex and why Trump has been so frustrated with both sides. Let's talk about the Russian demands first. Russia has forbidden Ukraine from ever joining NATO. To them, Ukraine joining NATO is unacceptable. So as far as Russia is concerned, if we're going to have a deal, Ukraine cannot ever join NATO. Condition 2, Russia also wants to maintain control over all of the far eastern Ukrainian territory that they have been able to conquer so far over the last 3 years. That's condition 2. They don't want to give up any of this. That's condition 2. Condition 3, Russia also wants Ukraine to put a very limited cap on the size and capacity of the Ukrainian armed forces. This is a big stipulation here. Russia says, listen, if we're going to have a peace deal, you guys are not allowed to have a threatening military anymore. They're effectively calling for a large-scale disarmament of the Ukrainian military. That is one of their big conditions. Because they have just been fighting them for 3 years, they don't want to have to worry about it again. That's another one of the Russian conditions. Now, so these are some hard conditions. Let's talk about the Ukrainian demands. Ukraine demands autonomous freedom in order to join NATO at some point in the future. So Ukraine says, listen, this is from Zalinsky himself. If we are going to de-escalate this and have a long-standing peace, we need to be able to join NATO in the future. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but that door has to at least be open a little bit. We have to have the aspiration of joining NATO. Could be a year from now, 2 years, 5 years, I don't know. But we want the option to do it at some point down the road. So that is the first of the Ukrainian demands. The second of the Ukrainian demands, that Russia gives back all of the territory that they have stolen or conquered in the last 3.5 years. So Ukraine says, listen, you guys have to give all of this back. If we're going to negotiate a long-standing peace, all of it, Crimea, Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Luhansk, all of it has got to be given back from Russia back to the Ukraine. That's the second stipulation from the Ukrainians. The third stipulation from the Ukrainians is this. Ukraine also wants security guarantees from NATO to protect them from potential Russian aggression should it arise at some point in the future. So Ukraine is saying, listen, if we're going to have long-standing peace, you know, what might these NATO security guarantees look like? It could be NATO military bases on the eastern side of Ukraine. You know, they want a NATO presence. They want NATO to protect them. They don't only want to join NATO down the road, but also in a more immediate way, they want NATO to offer them protection because they're worried that maybe, you know, we might have peace now, we might negotiate peace now, but what if a year from now Russia reinvades? Well, we want NATO to protect us in the future. So, you know, as you can see, we have some very conflicting interests here, to say the least. Pretty much what Russia is demanding is the exact opposite of what Ukraine is demanding, and inversely, what Ukraine is demanding is the exact opposite of what Russia is demanding. So you can see why a peace deal has not been achieved yet. Both parties here are pretty much refusing to make any capitulations whatsoever. However, if anyone is going to be able to work out a deal here, it is going to be President Trump. I mean, who else is going to be capable of doing it? As a reminder, this war in Ukraine waged on for almost 3 years, almost exactly 3 years under Joe Biden's presidential leadership. How many times did Joe Biden speak to Putin at all? How many times in 3 years of this war? Almost 3 years. Joe Biden picked up the phone and talked to Putin all of 0 times. Zero. The American deep state, maybe the NATO deep state, most certainly the Biden administration, they were totally happy to have this war go on. They wanted it to go on. In fact, they, in a lot of ways, the Biden admin helped instigate this war. So they got exactly what they wanted. They were in no hurry to shut this thing down. Trump is doing everything he can. He's making a very stern, concerted effort to shut this war down. You can tell he wants it badly. Now, there's another little interesting factoid that I found as I was doing my research before today's broadcast here. Interestingly enough, you remember a couple months ago, Trump was able to secure with Zalinsky a minerals deal. We've all heard about the minerals deal. Well, interestingly enough, almost all of the minerals that were promised to the United States in the recent minerals deal that Trump negotiated with Ukraine are actually located, all of these minerals, almost all of them, are located in these far eastern regions of Ukraine that are now being, controlled by the Russians. So that is also most certainly playing a part in all of this. I guess this is maybe a negotiating win for Zalinsky. You can understand why Zalinsky would do this. Zalinsky said pretty much, hey, Trump, listen, we have all these minerals in Donetsk. A lot of them are in Donetsk. Listen, Trump, Zalinsky here. We have hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of dollars worth of rare earth minerals, lithium, all types of stuff. And we're willing to give it to you if you help us and defend our country. But the minerals are in Donetsk and Luhansk and Kherson. And if you want to be able to go in there and extract the minerals, Trump, and make all this money and bring it back to America, then you've got to help us get the territory back. So it's kind of like if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type of dynamic. And so most certainly this is also a part of these negotiations going on behind the scenes. And so, like I said, Trump is going to be meeting with Putin in 5 days in Alaska on August 15th. We don't know exactly what that deal is going to look like. I'll tell you what, on Friday, I will be live all day covering all of that breaking news with you as it comes out. So come back on Friday for that. But right now we can only speculate. We can only try to connect the dots, whatever dots we have. So this is kind of where we're at with this negotiation. Like I said earlier, it seems like Zalinsky is not happy because he understands he is going to have to give up at least some land. That just seems to be the case. Now, regrettably, that's really all the information we have today. All this stuff is kind of minute by minute, hour by hour. So I think that is going to be a wrap for today's broadcast. But hopefully this is a sufficient update for you guys. I think we're going to have a lot more information regarding all of this here in the next couple days, most certainly by Friday. So once again, I want to say thank you all very much for tuning in today. I appreciate it, everybody. Please make sure to subscribe. We're on Rumble. We are on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe over here. Make sure to subscribe over there. Thank you guys very much. Please like all the broadcasts. I'll tell you what, guys, I have a little bit of a Sunday special, a Sunday surprise for you guys. I'm going to take maybe a 2 or 3 hour break. I'm going to go offline. In a couple hours later on in the day, I'm going to go live. We're going to do a little bit of a relaxing video game stream. We're going to play some games, and we're going to also talk politics while playing games. So if you want to just kind of hang out and talk, and we can have more of a back and forth, more of a dialogue, come back for that. I will be live primarily on Rumble. I will not be on YouTube for that. Not on YouTube. It's going to be on Rumble and also on Twitch. So go to Rumble. My name is Matt Morse TV on Rumble. You can tune into that. We can get a little bit more personal. We can hang out. We can talk. But that's going to be a wrap for this broadcast. Come back in a couple hours on Rumble. Thank you guys very much. Have a great afternoon. I'll see you guys later in the day on Rumble if you want to come back and hang out. And everybody have a great Sunday. Have a great Monday morning tomorrow. And